Okay. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're listening from, Chairmen. And I have to say, as you just heard, Oakley just said good morning as well. We have 4 chairmen today.
Yes,
Yes,
he's the number one baby in tone. This is his tone baptism today. He's joining us.
Can't wait. This is going to be a lot of fun. Probably the cutest kid ever. So I'm also excited about that because if I can just speak for the 3 of us, we bring a little bit to the looks department, but Oakley is absolutely smashing us right now. So
Right.
our aesthetic as chairman of the boards just got lifted quite a few levels. So thank you, Oakley.
Thanks, Oakley. Thank you.
I'm pumped today to chat about this topic because I feel like I have a general vibe of how you guys feel about this topic, but I'm also ready to be shocked and surprised. But basically today we are going to pit modular pedal boards, as I'm going to talk about them. If you guys have a better name for this, just one sound per pedal boards, modular pedal boards against multi-effects units. Basically one giant unit, computer on your board taking care of everything. We're going to pit them against each other and see how they stack up. Any initial comments from Oakley, Mason, or Omilion before we kind of get into this?
I think multi-effect systems have, there are plus and minuses. There's a lot of bands using them nowadays. So, I think it's more of a convenience factor, but we can dive further into that. But I do think there's a place for them, and technology is getting better and better. So you never really know.
Well, I speak for Oakley when I say this is a model-free household.
That's what I was expecting. I didn't want to assume, model-free. I didn't know maybe what he got for his 6-month half birthday.
No, there's not going to be. There's no axe effects allowed in this house. No, I'm just teasing.
Just a different type of axe.
I've had an axe effects too in my rack at one point. I feel like I like them as supplementary pieces. I think they need to be used judiciously, but are a great tool to have. I think that I did a video maybe a year ago or so on the M9. And kind of talking about that as a multi-effects, however outdated by today's standards, is still a staple in most Nashville session players' rigs. And the HX Effects and HX Stomp have not taken that over. So I would say there is a place, and I think that they're mostly using them to sort of fill in the gaps of like stuff that they wouldn't want to have maybe dedicated pedals to, that are kind of more fringe, that don't necessarily need to be something that takes up real estate on the pedal board, and they can incorporate it into kind of this catch-all multi-effects. I think in that case, they can be really great supplements. But as the only thing, you're never, ever going to compete with the classics. You're just not. And I'm sure that there's some guy out there that's saying, no, my HX Effects or my Axe Effects or all these things. This is the guy that puts toothpaste on his pizza. This is not a guy to be trusted who's saying this. So I'm just putting it out there because I know there's going to be some guy that's going to say that. And this is the toothpaste on the pizza guy. You don't want to trust this guy.
Spearmint toothpaste on a ham and pineapple, it's actually pretty good. I have to say,
spearmint, just the mint leaf,
the toothpaste, the toothpaste.
Oh, toothpaste.
Yeah, spearmint flavored toothpaste.
We're talking
on a pineapple,
Tom's or
Aquafresh
Aquafresh here.
Always Aqua. Go Aqua or go home.
We need that tricolor.
So I'm just saying, maybe I'm that guy. So I'm going to try today. I'm going to try and convince everyone listening and both of you to fully switch over to a multi-effects /modeler. And if I've done my job
on your pizza.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're about to say toothpaste on pizza.
If I do my job well,
pizza, it's Aquafresh in the crust.
Yeah. We're all going to be out of a job by the end of this episode. I'm just going to say that, myself included. So I've broken this up into a few different categories. First thing is types. So obviously we don't have to spend tons of time on this. I know a lot of you guys listening are quite familiar with the different options out there. But the different types of modelers, and tell me if I miss anything really quickly. We have like a Line 6 Helix, which is all in one unit, giant thing, tons of foot switches, endless options. From the same company, from Line 6, we also have the smaller versions, and there's a couple in between here, but we have HX Stomp and HX Stomp XL. We have the Neural Quad Cortex, which is kind of the new kid on the block, even though it's probably now, a couple years old? But it's kind of big hype. I think it was announced NAMM 2020. We had Fractal. The Fractal does an FM series, which is like a floorboard. They also do the Axe Effects. The newest is the 3, which is a rack-mounted unit. We have Kemper Stage, Kemper, what's it called? Toaster. Not actually a toaster. It's just the that's what the people are calling him these days. The cool
I think
kids?
it's like the nickname, toaster. It looks like one.
Not a kitchen
version.
accessory. It's still for your pedals. So we have the Kemper. We have Boss does their own versions of this. GT series. They have the GT 1000. And then if you're going kind of lower end, a little bit less expensive, we have like the TC Electronics Plethora, which is kind of a multi-effects unit, not nearly as capable as the previously mentioned units. Any other key players that I'm missing here?
This is on the lower level of one. There's like the Head Rush. I don't know who it's by.
Oh, yep. Thank you.
The Head Rush.
Don't forget the Pod. Everyone loves a Pod. Both in their coffee and their pedalboard.
I had that when I actually had the Vox Veltronic floorboard switcher.
Oh, beautiful.
But it was like the silver one with the pedal. I don't know if they make those anymore. I want one. I've been buying back old gear and just seeing how it sounds nowadays. And
now that you have more experience.
Yeah, like the RP50 I bought. I had one person's like, I'm legit gonna go buy one of those. I'm like, it's not a bad pedal. So, but yeah, no, I don't think there's many more. I mean,
unless you want to go old school though, like the M9, like I was talking about, or the M5 or the M13.
My biggest problem with the M5 especially, I've had 3 of them, 2 of which I owned a long time ago, and they just always broke. I haven't had this issue with the HX series or Helix or anything, but the M series, I haven't had the 9 or the 13, but endless problems.
Yeah, it's the same switch. I mean, the switches are usually the problem.
It was power for me both times.
That they blew up, or what happened?
No, I think it was the header between the 2 circuit boards was faulty on both units. I think it's a pretty common problem on the. So
like when you would wiggle the power, it would
I was like internally the header wasn't doing all that great. So it would sometimes power up, sometimes wouldn't. It would flash on and off, and. But I've had an HX Stomp for ages, not a single issue. It's been great.
It's great.
So
yeah. I guess it can be bad luck, I guess, on those. I've always had pretty good luck. The switches, though, have always been the problem for me. And so I usually just
maybe it was a message from the tone gods. Just stop using the M5. Go to modular pedals.
Right. Yeah.
Just a bit of a slap in the face,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do remember, I have to say one more little anecdote before moving on. When I was first into guitar, getting into effects, I'm going to mess up the model number. It was a Boss GT something. This would have been, 15, 17 years ago. It was a gold Multieffects Boss unit. And I thought I was the coolest kid on the block because I had every effect I could possibly want at not my fingertips, my toe tips, the tips of my toes. And I could never, my biggest issue back then, not really understanding this, I could never level everything. I'd hit one pedal and the signal would jump or drop, and then I hit another and same thing. And I could never really, fully understand it. And, but the most important thing is, I was cool and I looked good playing. So I was pretty happy about that with my first ever multi-effects. But things have, like Mason said, they've come a long ways since let's say the M series for Line 6, the M5, the M9, M13. Now the DSP and the amount of power you have in these things is just incredible. But the first thing I wanted to chat about, now that we've gone through a few of the available options these days from Helix, Quad Cortex, Fractal, all that. is to talk about the comparison between price of a modular pedal board versus that of a multi-effects unit. So I just want to get price out of the way. Obviously, a multi-effects unit is going to be cheaper than a, let's say, medium to large size pedal board. I wrote down some of the prices here for some of these guys. The Axe Effects, which is one of the more expensive ones, the Axe Effects 3, which is the rack unit, $2,300 US. The floorboard from the same company, the smallest one, $1,000. So $1,000 to $2,300. Kemper, you're going from $1,800 US for the floorboard up to $2,350 for, I think that's the powered Kemper where you can run a speaker cab. And so basically between all of these, the Quad Cortex is somewhere in the middle around $1,850. You're going down to a few $100s for really basic multi-effects, all the way up to around $2,500 for a full featured multi-effects unit. If you were to do the same thing, I don't know, what do you guys think? Same basic effects that you want to cover on a medium-sized pedal board, everything you have to buy, whereabouts are you sitting price-wise for a typical pedal board? For the gear, not to get it set up. For the gear itself, you have to purchase pedal board, power, obviously the pedals, the cables, everything there. What are we looking at?
I think a big determination is which brand are the pedals, because if
clone.
you know
Just a clone. That's it.
10 clones. No, like if you you pick a timeline and that's already $449, like that's already almost $500. And then if you add in his for just a delay, and then you add in his evil stepbrother or whatever you want to call the big sky, like next to him, his brother, like that's $479. So that's already almost $1,000, like in just reverb and delay. And then stuff like the Quad Cortex.
Hello.
He's
got one.
I got one.
See, I'm already convincing you, man. You started the show with no Quad Cortex, and here it is.
I just had to order it. Amazon, they do wonders in seconds. But like at $1,000 for two pedals, we haven't talked about power supply. Couple, three. I almost said a couple hundred. Like, no, get the correct power supply always. But like that alone. What is the quad? Do you have a number on the Quad Cortex? I can't.
$1,850.
For $1,850, trying to get overdrives, a volume pedal, board, cabling, power supply, amp, everything, you're going to be pushing almost probably, I would say $3 if you get good stuff. If you do everything off Amazon Basics and you get the Amazon power supply and you get all the
which
cheap
we will not do
pedals, buy a bunch of $29 Joyo pedals or whatever, like you buy really cheap stuff, yeah, sure, you could beat the price, but this kind of stuff just makes, I see more. I've been making a lot of the Quad Cortex power Chox cables that we've talked about, and I had a couple people, I have a couple friends that use them. One of the guys from the band A Ghost Inside, like they use them. One of the guys is switching for We Came as Romans, like they're starting to intrigue using them. And I asked him, I was like, what is the reason for it? He goes, man, it's just so convenient. It's all in one. You don't have to worry about bad cables, on touring. You don't have to worry about these things. And the fact that I have every type of effect in here, it's just convenient and it works. So, I mean, when you start factoring that kind of stuff, like pedals are fun, but like, it just adds up. The little things add up that you don't think about. So.
Yeah, I feel Brian's starting to come to the dark side. Mason, any comments here on?
I like both.
I mean, I think the estimate for individual pedals to sort of cover, what a lot of these do for most people. Again, everybody's sort of, let's say group of core pedals of, let's just say it's somewhere between 10 and 12. I mean, I think you're probably spending minimum $5,000 and probably for some people upwards to 10,000. So certainly it reduces your initial investment considerably. And I think if you're going to do multi-effects, I almost feel like the best time to do it is actually when you're sort of starting out and maybe using it as a supplement with, I'm hoping with an amplifier, 2 amplifier. because it is a different vibe than if everything's in the box or everything's a modeling sort of device. But the reason why I say that is it gives you a couple of good starting places as a beginner who's just getting into effects to firstly learn about how to combine effects, how to order effects. All these have the ability typically to be able to change orders and to route your signal paths. And you can start to experiment with things like wet, dry, wet. You can start to experiment with things like, where to run your drives, versus your delays, where to run, compressors and things like that. And then you can start to augment and supplement the multi-effects with individual pedals where you want to start sort of experimenting more with individual stuff. And so you can still have a full and complete pedal board and start to kind of incrementally one by one buy individual pedals and then use your multi-effects to supplement the rest of the effects chain until you've either made the transition fully to individual pedals or you end up with a combination of multi-effects and individual pedals. I think it's a really good place to start so that you kind of get familiarity, you get your sea legs, and then you can start to improvise from there.
Love it.
Actually, I have a reference if you guys don't mind me sharing my screen real quick.
Yeah, do it.
So I had a gentleman come in, great guy, came in and said, I want you to build me a board, like a dream board kind of scenario, and everything you could think of on there, kind of like, so I can play all these different styles of music, which to a builder that's like. Especially in the guitar sanctuary like that, it's just like a kid in the candy shop. You're just thinking up every possible thing you could dream of. So we did a couple quotes, and a couple of them were like, let's add a switcher, let's not. And for the level that he wanted to play, he didn't need one. So we came up with this one. I'll share it real quick. This board that we did on a Vertex, and we bought all the pedals are from us. The board, the wah, everything. Oh, whoops. Everything.
Look at that. Look at that beautiful Soldano.
Right? So like everything is from here. The power supply, the patch bay, everything, cabling, like this, and this is the Tour Elite. So this is the 29x15. So for like this board,
what an elitist.
Right?
That's what we call everybody who buys a Tour Elite. We call them an elitist.
Yeah. Effects loop routing, stereo tuning, like we put everything on there, all the staples to try to get all those different sounds. And I think if I can remember before like labor, it was just pedals, the board, the power supply, all the cabling. It was around like 5,500. I think that was just for all the stuff, because people think, 12 pedals isn't going to add up. But they do, and that's a big, that's a big
quickly.
thing. So
Yeah.
it's insane. Like people are like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. I'm like, okay, and they think like it's only $12 extra worth of work, but really it's like, okay, yeah, maybe it's $12 for that one cable, but then you got to think about the time, and then you got to think about the pedal alone.
Yeah.
It's like a sticker shock. That's a big time what's going to be for people. And I'm like, but you got to think about it. That pedal times blah, blah, blah money. It's a lot of money. So, but yeah, so that was just a reference.
And you got to spend a certain amount of money. It's just like, you never want to go to the $1 sushi buffet. You never want to go to the $20 tattoo artist. There's just certain things you don't want to do.
Yep.
And I know we're going heavy on analogies today, and I apologize to all of the $20 back alley tattoo artists or the $1 all-you-can-eat sushi buffets. But there's just certain things that are going to be a consequence of that, which is hepatitis and botulism, and
big hospital bills.
We just want to make people aware, and I think that. First of all, I want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube, how the heck did you end up fitting the interface on the left side of the Tour Elite?
There's space. There was space. There was, I would say, at least.
Do you have to enlarge the holes in order to do it?
Nothing. No, I didn't. So I actually had a gentleman. He commented on it. I think he reached out to you. He's like, "How did you get it to work?" Because his board, he had the bridge wasn't as deep. Where I have a photo and I'll find it when you guys are talking, but
Yeah, some
there's
of the
at
smaller
least 2
ones.
inches. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the smaller didn't work. And he's like, man, I'm trying. I'm like, I'm just telling you, all I did was I just stuck it in there. I didn't have to mod it. I didn't do anything to it. It fit perfectly.
You should have made a bigger deal about it, man. It's like, it was tough. It took a few hours, but I made it
work. A lot
work.
of elbow grease.
I got my Omilion touch
with Omilion audio.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, before we start getting into the GoFundMe for Brian to change his name to Omilion, I want to mention 2 of the amazing sponsors that make this podcast possible every single week. The first is Guitar Sanctuary, and Brian, although he works there, he's too cool to actually plug himself, and so we're going to do it for him. The Guitar Sanctuary is one of the premier dealerships of all great effects, amplifiers, guitars, from sort of mainstream stuff like Fender and Gibson to all the cool boutique stuff that we all know and love, including things like Goodwood Audio and Vertex Effects, all available at the Guitar Sanctuary. And as Brian has already pointed out by the beautiful pedal board that he's shown here, if you're watching on YouTube, he can put these pedal boards together for you using all equipment that either they curate there at the Guitar Sanctuary or stuff that you provide to him. Builds beautiful boards through the Guitar Sanctuary, so please do check them out. At theguitarsanctuary.com, you can search all of their provisions, and you can also reach out directly to Brian through their website. And then secondly, our friends over at Sweetwater have a new program, which is absolutely amazing, that competes with things like Reverb and eBay. It is their gear exchange, where peer-to-peer sales can occur, where I can buy and sell my used equipment and sell it to other people that are interested in it, just like you would on Reverb, except the benefit of the gear exchange is that you don't need to pay seller fees if you decide that you want to put your profits on a Sweetwater gift card. If you're somebody like me that's buying stuff from Sweetwater all the time, this is a great way to keep every single dollar that you earn as a seller, a great way to continue to get new gear into your house, into your studio, wherever it is that you may be. I absolutely love using this service. It is everything that I love about Reverb without the things that I dislike about Reverb. Head over to sweetwater.com/used. You can set up an account for free and you can start selling and buying stuff immediately. I've already had great experiences. Absolutely love it. Highly recommend Sweetwater Gear Exchange. Let's get back now to, Brian, let's talk about this GoFundMe here. However you were able to get this thing mounted on the left side, I think is pretty impressive. And just show that board one more time, please. It's just so beautiful. I
gotta say, if the GoFundMe, if I can start it, I'm just trying to get the second L in my name. I can't afford the second L.
It's not cheap.
So 2 L's and a B.
2 L's would be great, and a B.
Yeah. So whoever wants to start the GoFundMe, I don't think it's that. It's probably a few $100 to do a name change. I don't know. Maybe somebody knows better than me.
Probably. And I just updated my passport, so that probably wasn't the best time.
Yeah, you should have waited.
So we can throw that in there. We can throw in the passport thing in there too.
I actually have a video. It's really, it might be really crappy and blurry, but if you guys can see right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at that. That's like the metal bracket length. Yeah. Depth.
So it must be because the first 2 sizes, like a travel light or a tour compact, they're I think a 6.5 inch depth. Whereas that one's deeper. Yeah.
Much deeper. Yep. So that's why.
Yeah. Goes to show you what I know about our products. Nothing. I just rely on Brian to tell me.
Well, now you know, man. You can add that to the feature list.
Yeah.
So guys, I think it's time to come to the really probably the weightiest part of my argument for multi-effects units.
Oh, so you're committed.
Oh, I'm committed. Until the very end of this episode, when I get my
can I ask you a quick question,
thoughts.
Grant? Quick question: Are you allowed to in Canada, in British Columbia? Are you allowed to commit somebody to an institution, involuntarily or voluntarily?
No, unfortunately, you need just cause. And so I know what you're thinking. Like, if you move up to Canada, Mason, will you be institutionalized for not having a multi-effects. And no, you cannot. You cannot be institutionalized. It is a safe place up here. So please come on up, guys. I mean, I
was thinking if you were going down fully, if you were going fully down the multi-effects path, that we could call it in. We could call it in.
Yeah. No.
Hey,
sorry,
when he comes here, whenever he dies, and we all go to Chipotle, after we get Chipotle, we'll just drop him off
meal.
at the nearest. Right?
Yeah.
He's like, why are you giving me extra chicken? And I'm like,
why are you guys being so nice to me? What's going on?
Yeah, you spurred for the extra guac. What's up?
Okay. All right. So here we go. So this is where I am truly impressed by multi-effects, and I'm talking more the higher level, neural, axe effects, all that stuff.
Yep.
Some of the lower level stuff can't do what I'm about to mention, but one of the things I'm very impressed with, and this is the thing I think is going to kick Mason over the edge here, is you can do amp capturing, you can do pedal capturing, you can do IRs, you can create a sound with your analog amps, effects, combinations of all of the above, capture it on the multi-effects unit, take it on the road. You do not need to rely on backline. There's no faulty tubes, like you already said, Mason, no bad cables. You got your whole rig, your analog rig, captured in the multi-effects unit. I mean, what is better than that? Chipotle almost can't compete with that. That's how good it is.
Chipotle can't.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. So some of the things you can do with a multi-effects, I wrote a little bit of a list. You can do, and especially with neural, you can do individual pedal captures. So you could capture your clon without bringing it on the road. That's for you, Brian. I know you've got a few clones. You have reamping options. You can do anything between mono, dual mono, stereo, wet, dry, wet, dry, wet. You can do dry, dry, wet, like anything. And you can do it at the push of a button. So flexibility on signal routing. I love and think that guitar players in general underestimate the power of signal routing. And so to have any combination of signal routing available at the push of a button, I think is one of the best things about multi-effects units, even more than the effects themselves, is the signal routing power that you have. Let's see, you can use it with or without real amps. So you have amp and cab sims, just cab sims, you have preamp sections, power amp sections, all that. You could use it with multiple instruments, acoustic, electric, keys, bass, all of that's, I mean, I could probably go on for years here with the effects that you have available and the routing options available. Did I miss any pros? Because I know you guys are thinking at this point, man, Grant is bringing up some good points here. I have some other ideas he's missed. Brian, please.
I'm going to refer to holding this guy up. So if you look at it, on the back, you can see the inputs are a 1/4 inch NXLR.
Yep.
So the cool thing about that is if you're a one-man band or you do solo gigs, you can run your vocal mic into the unit and do reverb or delay or whatever you want to do, as well as have a secondary thing for your guitar or whatever, or for a guitar and whatever you want to do, kick drum or whatever. My coworker explained to me, because it's a dual quad processor, basically because there's 4, like, if this is one that's already set up, let me go to one that's not. So like you have, if I can get this amazing glare, so you can see how there's 4 ins, 4 outs. So basically the first 2 are one quad, and the third and fourth are a second quad. So each line is a half a quad processor. So obviously when you start, throwing a ton of stuff in there, it can, bog it down. But it's a lot of power for one thing, especially if you're one guy and, you can run an acoustic into this. I did a setup for a guy who ran his acoustic into this, and it was a really simple patch. And but you can do a lot of different stuff with it, like just that, like running a vocal mic in it and adding reverb or adding delay to it. I mean, it's like a mixing board.
You could run the sound of your favorite DI. I know some acoustic players love certain DIs. You could capture that as well. Mm-hmm. Just go in there. I think if I was a one-man band, which I am not, the first thing I would put on my mic is auto-tune or pitch correction, because I would need it.
What about a de-esser?
I would also need a de-esser. Yeah. that as well.
There's at one of the studios that sometimes we'll record at, they have like, like how people have like those, I don't know what they're called, like those little plaques on their desks, is like world's best dad, stuff like that. Well, at this studio, it has this plaque that says, "Don't S it up." And it's like I guess a de-esser warning to like one of the engineers that like, I guess they feel like overuses the de-esser. Don't S it up.
Awesome.
But so here's the thing that I think that all these points that you make are valid.
Thank you. Here he comes.
There's one thing though that I would just say about the capturing of the amps in the pedals that I think needs to be mentioned, and I can already tell that Oakley here is very passionate about this particular thing that I'm about to say.
Haven't seen.
Because he's clairvoyant and he knows what I'm thinking. Or is that ambidextrous? I forget. You can read minds. So when you do a capture on a quad cortex, it's taking a snapshot of something at a point in time.
Yep.
And then it's using its software to be intuitive about what the settings would then do if they were changed. And so you're dependent upon it understanding the intricacies of the pedal, and if there are certain ways that the pedal interacts impedance-wise, or how, I don't know, the dual gang pot works on a quad, it probably isn't going to be able to fully interpret and be able to match exactly what it is that it's doing. Because again, it's taking a snapshot at a point in time, and then when you go to start moving the knobs around, you're dependent upon its understanding of what the picture is that it takes, that it's going to be able to then, fill in all of the gaps that are not the information that it doesn't have about that pedal. And so I found that in some cases you might be able to get really specific tones in a pedal. And that's not to say that, there's a million good settings in every pedal, because usually there's not. Usually there's maybe a couple. But I would say that the shortcomings that I've noticed, and I've spoken with Rhett Shull a lot about this, that he did this, I think, to an Ultraphonics once, and found that, like, yeah, it was like okay as long as you didn't start changing stuff around, and then as soon as you started sort of moving things around, the interaction with the gain and the guitar, it became less similar to the pedal. And so I think that this is just something to consider. And I haven't had any experience modeling pedals, but I've had it with the amp side. And I know a few people that use them, including Corey Wong, and there are some challenges. He obviously has his own like signature sound on a quad cortex, which is a great sounding kind of clean model. But when you go to like, say, model, I don't know, a Soldano, or model, a Dumble style amp or whatever, you can get like some acceptable sounds, but it doesn't at all resemble, at least to the versions that we did, and perhaps it could be user error on my part. I'm totally open to that being the possibility. It did lose some luster, if you're comparing, mic'd cabinet to, XLR direct into the DAW. And that's how I compare. I don't compare like amp in the room versus like in, all in my monitor speakers. Like I'll record the amp, and then I'll, do the model, and then I'll listen to that, separately, so that I can hear them, in sort of the most realistic context that they would be a one-to-one comparison. So I think it's just something to remark. I don't know that it's something to necessarily be scared of. And maybe there are capabilities of these units like the quad cortex that I'm oversimplifying, because I'm not a quad cortex user. I'm of course open to using that. But before we continue in this vein, I believe we have some more sponsors to thank for making the podcast possible.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we want to thank Creation Music Company. We've all used Creation Music Company on boards. John Snyder and his team make great flatboards, bridges, angle boards, cases, plugs, cabling. They do it all. I think if I don't have at least 5 or 6 packages a week coming in from Creation, then it's not a good week. But Great company in Tulsa. They are running our promo for Chairmen 15 for 15% off on their website, creationmusiccompany.com. The promo does exclude some of their customized customized elevation series boards, but it works for everything else. They have pre-made patch cables, bulk cabling, and anchors and zip ties, everything that I use, all these little adhesive anchors and everything. These are the 3/4. They have all that there. So check them out. Visit them if you're local, or check them out online.
Love it.
Heck yeah.
Thanks, Brian.
Creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, 10%. How can you, or 15%? How can you beat that? 15%, Chairman 15, creationmusiccompany.com. It doesn't get any better than that. You know, you got to think about it this way. It's 85% away from free.
Right.
That's basically what that means.
Yep.
So if you need to explain it to your wife or your
tell
partner,
her the money you'll save, not the money you'll spend. Lesson I've learned.
Yeah.
85% on, 15% off.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the way you got to look at it.
Yeah. 15 is almost like 45.
This is probably the biggest pedal board tip you'll get all day.
It really is. No, it's funny though. I'll be like working and they'll bring me back like a whole stack of packages, and it's like parents shopping for Christmas items and they're stacked high. That's how it is with me in creation. I'm constantly ordering stuff. I got cases up there. I got cases everywhere. But yeah, they're great.
Love it.
But yeah, I was going to chime in. Yeah, I was going to chime in about the capturing actually that Mason made a comment on.
Yeah, please correct me.
Well, so I don't have I'm going to do more video capturing stuff on it. It's just such as Grant and I talked about this morning. I just released a tutorial video, and I don't think I've ever put so much time into one single tutorial video. Just with overlays and stuff. But some videos will come of capturing and stuff, and I think it'll be handy to see how easy it is to do. But I've talked to a couple clients that have done board setups, and they love their board setups, but they wanted this quad to have a little easier accessibility of different locations that they were playing, because one's like a house set, like a house board, so then they can't bring like that board home with them. It stays at the church that they're playing. So they got a couple of the quads, and he did all the capturing for his stuff. And the most confusing thing for me, and I could not really I couldn't understand it until I got one. I was like, so when it captures the pedal, is it capturing to where it knows that it has a bass, treble, and a volume and a gain knob? And he's like, it has a general idea. Basically, you set how you want it, and then it has some on the unit settings. It would be cool to see you could capture a device at 0 tone and then 100% tone, and then the device you can go and adjust that to really, because if everything's at noon, like most of my pedals are at noon. I think some things might be a little less bass, but like if you could get like that nitty gritty, and maybe if Neural is listening, if they want to do that on an update, that would be great. But like that's where I think these pedals start to really like, yes, you're basically copy and pasting your tone, but the problem I'm still trying to understand is like, if you're going to tweak that pedal, is that pedal going to react the same on the unit as if you were doing it on the physical pedal? Like if I turn down,
and that's what I found
gain,
was not consistent.
So that's the hard part for me, is because jumping between guitars, like I have one overdrive, one boost pedal, like that's what I use for that. So I'm adjusting my gain level sometimes for my different guitars, but like that's the whole thing that I'm still trying to get some clarity on. And some people are like, oh yeah, it takes it really well and it adjusts everything really well, but like
these are the toothpaste on the pizza people.
That's the thing.
But like Grant. But I think that and I've seen guys do this. And again, I don't know if Neural has updated this or there is another option for this. But I've seen guys do things where they'll have the same pedal in two models, like a low gain and a high gain option. If they maybe have two settings for a pedal, they might have them, as two different sort of captures, one at one setting, one at the other. But I agree, it would be cool if you could sort of do a sweep of the control so that it had a better idea of, or the software had a better idea of how the interactivity of the knobs might work. Because on a lot of pedals, there can be a wide variety of tones and interactivity between the different controls that it can be hard to capture if you're trying to sort of set a linear model, or like plotting it like a graph would, and that's typically how a lot of the software sort of treat this sort of thing.
Yeah, it would basically be like 0 would be like this frequency, and then 100% would be this, and then they would have to, what's the 0 to 100 frequencies? Look at that. Yeah, I understand why it's so much more like in depth and stuff. Obviously, that's something I'm like, yeah, figure it out. You made these foot switches turnable, like that's one of my favorite features. Like that's a cool little thing, and I like the little details. But I agree with you. And the whole second capture of the same pedal in a different setting, it makes sense. I mean,
and you could do that. And I don't know if there would be I don't know that would be too difficult to ask somebody to do, and just be like, okay, well, I like my Klon at this setting when it's a clean boost. I like it at this setting when it's more of an overdrive. So I'll do 2 captures, and I'll have them on different foot switches, and now I got 2 Klons. Instead of 1.
Yeah, that's money saved right there. I have to say, if you're talking to your wife,
multiplicity. Here we go.
Yep. So far, I'm just hearing a whole lot of complaining from you guys, and I love it.
I do love it.
I feel like for the benefits, signal routing, light back. Think of all the money you'll save on chiro appointments and physio, just for having a good back, for not having to carry that pedal board around. There's just so many pros here, not many cons. But I feel like maybe, Mason, you're unconvincible. I've thrown everything I've had at you. I will say, though, my honest thoughts here, because it's been a little, obviously a little tongue in cheek the whole time. I am to break the news to you guys gently, to let you down as easy as I possibly can. I am not a Multieffects user. But in doing research and putting this all on paper, if you're just going by features, it is a flat out victory for Multieffects. But the thing that gets me from, and you guys have kind of touched on this a little bit, but the thing that gets me is when we're talking amp and cab sims, which are all over Multieffects, and some do a better job than others with amp and cab sims, is the feel thing. So recorded, you listen to them through your monitors, they do actually really well. Playing a live gig with a digital amp or an amp sim, you lose the feel of it. It's not the same. But the other big pros, I think, where I would be getting into using something like a Neural or maybe an Axe Effects, is if I was doing fly in, fly out dates a lot, I think I would probably make the change. To be able to carry my whole rig as a carry-on on a plane, like the Neural, I looked it up. The Neural is 4 pounds.
It's
a
so
pedal
small.
board, a medium-sized pedal board, you're going to be hitting around the 50-pound mark with the case and everything like that. So even for fly in, fly out, I could make a case. I could see myself using it. My other big complaint about using a Multieffects is that HX Stomp as an example. That's technically a Multieffects unit, although a small one. I cannot stand using the same company's take on a delay, a reverb, a chorus, a tremolo. Maybe you're getting into overdrives and everyone has their take on what a delay or a reverb should sound like, and I'm just not ready to commit. I'm not ready to commit to one company's approximation of what these effects should sound like.
Yeah.
And so that's another reason why I would not go the Multieffects route. In this option we were just talking about, you can capture your favorites. That's all true. It won't be the same as having the modular pedal on there. So all that to say, I am willing, and have, as of you guys, I'm willing to spend more money on a pedal board that is heavier, harder to troubleshoot, way more time to set up, and like all of this. I'm willing to spend more money on that to get the tone that I am after. and to have the flexibility to sub in different companies at will. But cost,
so you're
flexibility.
saying you're not on the HX Effects now?
No. I wanted to play and see if I could get you guys over to the other side, of which I could not. It's almost like you guys have been in the industry for a little while and know what you're talking about.
Well, no, I do think there is. I am a fan of the quad. So I think it depends on your situation, really. And I think I know this isn't only the quad podcast for today. Like, there are all sorts of things. The quadcast.
Thank you.
But quad is 4, right? Yeah. So we have 4 Chairmen. That makes sense that it's the quadcast today.
Yeah. On multiple levels.
But I think a big one, and it only makes sense to bring this up, and I don't want people to get at me for name dropping, because I don't want to be that guy.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Because I did this quad cord setup for Seal. He gave me a call, and the unit and the expression, the mission and everything, like, obviously putting it all together on a small little board. People are like, why throw all that on a board when you could just throw the thing on the board? Throw it on the ground. But for some people, running this is a convenience factor. Setting it down, plugging the XLRs, you have your tone. You can, like, he is running acoustic, but you could run other things in it. So if you're a musician that is constantly switching from guitar to bass to acoustic, you can use this one single device that you've invested all of your money into for multiple different types of gigs, especially if you're playing. But before we continue, I do want to mention that we do have a few more sponsors that Grant would like to talk about.
You read my mind, Brian. I don't know how you do it. You're also ambidextrous. So the first one is mono, not the kissing disease. The company monocreators.com. So we all love mono creators. I'm going to say the full name because it's less
not
confusing.
Mononucleosis.
Yes, there we go. See, Brian's
Not
actually holding up a mono backpack. They do some posts. Mono do some posts on their Instagram of basically like everything that fits in a backpack, and they do that top. What's that called? The top picture, where everything is kind of outside of the backpack, and so all this stuff fits in there. It is crazy what you can fit inside of these backpacks. They're gig bags for guitar. They also have additional compartments. The thing I love about mono the most is the quality of the gear that you get. As soon as you pick it up, you know that you're holding on to a quality piece of gear that you're buying for years and years to come, rather than those other pieces that I know you guys have, we've all been there. They're way more affordable, but they're going to fall apart after 6 months. And so it's just not the case with mono. We love their stuff. They do pedal boards as well, which I know I mentioned last week. My favorite thing about their pedal boards is how much real estate you have underneath the board for junctions, power, whatever else you need to mount underneath. So great company, huge fans, all of the Chairmen, including Oakley, I can tell. And if you go to their website, Mono Creators.
He fits in a mono backpack.
See, there you go. There's a space for Oakley. I think it's called the Oakley bag. Monocreators.com, and use the code Chairmen, CHAIRMEN, on checkout. You'll get 10% off. So check them out. The other company I really want to chat about is Bestronics, or btpa.com. Basically, if you need something for your pedal board, plugs, cable, attachments, custom made units or cables, they do setups as well. They do all sorts of stuff for rack gear. If you need it for your pedal board, Bestronics sells it. And they are giving away 10% off of your order if you use the code on checkout, DACHAIRS, DACHAIRS. My favorite thing about Bestronics, they are big enough to store everything that you need for your pedal board, but small enough to give you the personalized service you need when you have questions. And I'm speaking from personal experience here, talking with Brad at Bestronics. Huge help. They always point you in the right direction. So check out btpa.com and use DACHAIRS on checkout for 10% off. And those are the sponsors. I'm glad I could tell you guys about them.
I got to mention, though, Mono's going to have to change their name from Mono Creators to like Multiple Creator, because I don't just have one mono bag. Like I have multiples, backpacks, double bag, like the double case, like Mason mentions before. Like, yeah, their stuff is great.
The double gig bag is a good one.
So
Two
good.
guitars.
I think my head's kind of in the way. I like all my cases like back here, and my double gig bags over there.
Yes.
Yeah, they make great stuff.
So I think there are some clear winners in terms of, or clear pros, let's say, to using a multi-effects. But if your only prerequisite for your board is I want to sound as good as possible, and I know that is the most subjective thing I could say, but generally speaking, you're going to want to go for a modular board. But there are a whole lot of additional things you're going to need to buy to make that happen. And what we're seeing a lot of, and I know I just recently did a board like this. I know Brian's done a lot. I'm not sure, Mason, if you've ever used a board like this or not, because I know multi-effects for you is a little bit of a 4-letter word. But boards that are kind of a hybrid of the two. So a quad cortex with a few overdrives up front, maybe your favorite reverb and an effects loop, and you're kind of blending the two worlds together. So like Mason mentioned earlier in this episode, if you need a rotary, but you don't want to dedicate one whole pedal to a rotary slot because you don't really use it that much, then the quad cortex takes care of that. If you need some parallel routing, or you need amp and cab sims just as a backup for certain gigs and this, that, and the other thing, doing kind of a combination board can be a really good option for people that kind of need a little bit of both worlds. What are you guys' thoughts on that? Would you ever use it yourself? Have you? And Mason, is this kind of a halfway point you can meet us at?
Well, I think as I said, there is a place, and I think that place for multi-effects is, again, for people that are just getting into guitar pedals. I think that now multi-effects, seems with each passing year they become better sounding, better user interfaces, and it can be a great way for a beginner to start to understand and experiment with signal paths, so that when they transition to tonal adulthood and they're buying individual pedals, they've already put in their hours, behind the wheel, with sort of a more proctored setup that is the multi-effects. And then they can decide if they want to kind of, continue to have those training wheels on as they supplement with other individual pedals. And, there's certainly merit and precedent to it, in that I talked about earlier how most of the Nashville rigs include a Line 6 M9. And that is a multi-effects, certainly an earlier incarnation than a lot of them that we're talking about, but nonetheless is a multi-effects, and it's used to supplement for the very reasons that you said. It doesn't mean that I hate Line 6 or their new I'm sure Mr. 6 is a very nice guy.
Indeed.
Over at Line 6, and and they've made some great stuff, and we've made some videos that really plug the qualities of the M9 and also even the HX effects. So they have some great stuff, and I think it can be supplemented and used effectively with regular pedals, and I have nothing against that. I have nothing against that if that's something that is going to help you consolidate your rig and is going to be used as something to help you get the best possible tone or meet the needs of your gig.
Love it. Very diplomatic answer. I like that. It is good to know with Oakley being early on his journey that he will be getting a multi-effects unit as well. I feel good about this. Before you have a chance to respond, Brian, any comments from you?
Yeah, I mean, I also agree. I think it really, it depends on your needs as a musician, like what you need, because some gigs you may, instead of switching out pedals constantly, having like an HX stomp on the board is really convenient, because you can have patches where it has extra types of pedals that you're not used to having. Like me, I don't have like a POG on my board, but I have an H9 wired pre and post to where, depending on if I need that POG sound, I can pull up a POG sound So it's the same thing that can happen with an HX Stomp, a Kemper Stage, any of these multi-effects pedals. Like, people say, oh, there's so much stuff in it, you don't need it. It's like, yeah, but it's accessible because this gig, I might need this pedal. So I can scroll up on my HX Stomp and I can find this sound. And it allows you to have to do less pulling stuff off. I mean, that's a big part. I put a Kemper on a board for convenience for someone because to them, that was convenient to have everything in one area, put all their effects. And I said, well, why didn't you just get the Stage? And he was like, this is just what I like. I have all my sounds, but I have all the blocks, everything that I need at any time to be able to switch stuff around and program extra stuff. So I think, it's the same rule I have. Every musician is different. Some things work for some people. Some things don't work for some people, but having the convenience of both things is great. I love pedals, but I also love multi-effect pedals because they do multiple things in such a compact size.
Love it. So to finish us off, I have one last question. Would appreciate your true and honest answer. And that is, since we are all on the journey to Tone Town, I think it's fair to say no one has really fully arrived there yet. All we can do is speculate. And I would like to ask you guys, once we finally do get to Tone Town on that fateful day, will there be multi-effects present?
Yes.
You can. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Like I said, I think there's a place for it, and the accessibility of it is really cool for me.
Mason?
It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Who's to know?
That was a big sigh. That was a big breath.
Can this just be over already?
I just plan to be surprised. We'll see what happens.
Love it. Love it. Well,
keep it spicy.
Hopefully that's been helpful. I think I have to be honest here. My favorite episodes of Chairmen, being a part of it, is the ones where we do not all agree. I think it's good to get episodes where we're bringing the perspectives that we have, and you bring your own pros and cons list to the conversation. And so I really enjoy it when we don't all agree on the same thing. There are a few things we always agree about, and I think that's good. Some of the pillars of tone, or the holy trinity of tone, is
Holy
the
Trinity.
Rig Doctor likes to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I know that there are people listening that think we are flat out wrong, and multi-effects is the only way to go. Your perspective is valid, and I would like to know how you overcome some of the hurdles that we talked about with multi-effects in the comments, because I legitimately want to know. I can say I have not given the Neural, the AxeFX 3, some of these, probably the fairest trial. I've kind of come into this with a bit of a bias. I still think I'm right, but it is a bias. So would love to hear you guys' comments on how you overcome some of those things. Other than that, any final things to say, guys, before we finish up for the day?
I think it's all been said, and I'm happy to report, Grant, after you kind of walked back your original statement. We had originally, Brian and I had checked to see if there were any available beds at Bellevue Mental Institution there in Vancouver. And thankfully we didn't book anything on your behalf.
Appreciate that. Thank
so
you waited till the episode was over.
Yeah, no beds available.
Yep. A lot of multi-effects users up here, and so the asylum is full.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and this is good because they specialize in electroshock therapy, specifically from 9 to 18 volts DC.
Yes,
it's very mild. It's very mild.
But effective.
They use a chocks with RCA plugs.
I was about to say, do they use chocks, or do they actually connect just like? Switches. Do they connect paddles to like a tube amp and just to the power supply?
No, I feel like the RCA plugs are good probes.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't have anything. I would love to know in the comments though, like what multi-effect unit you guys are using, or if you're listening on the podcast, you can just just yell it out your window of your car while you're driving.
We'll hear you.
We'll hear you. Let your neighbor that's driving next to you that's eating their breakfast burrito hear what you're using.
Yeah,
but no,
honk
that's
if
it.
you use multi-effects.
Yeah, 2 honks if you use tube amps, 1 long honk if you use multi-effects.
There you go.
But no, that's it. I think it was a great conversation because there's room for all sorts of different types of gear, and that's the cool thing about musicians is that we have the opportunity through all these great sponsors and all of our local stores and online and YouTube and everything to just see the possibilities, and just there's no cap on creativity. So yeah, I thought it was great.
Love it. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you a little further down the road to Toad Town next week.
Yes.
All right. See ya.
Bye.